Hello and welcome to Building Better Websites to Grow Your Small Business. We'll get started in just a minute. Thanks for joining if you're here with us live. All right, here we go. Welcome to Building Better Websites Together to Grow Your Small Business. Hi, I'm Ray Katz. I'm the founder of Ray Katz Creative Solutions. If you're interested in more great content about building websites, growing your small business, just having a friend out there who knows what it's like to grow a business like this, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe so that you get all of our future content as well. Today we'll be talking specifically about building better websites for your small business. As people join, let us know what the weather's like in your part of the world, where you're logging in from. Do you have a small business? Love to hear. This is an interactive presentation, so if you have questions or comments at any time, please feel free to put them in the chat and I'll try and keep an eye on it. We have a lot to cover today, so we're going to jump in and get started. This is what we'll cover today. I'll do a quick intro. Who am I and why am I talking to you about websites? We'll ask, is a website important for your small business? And I'll talk about lots of stuff that I've learned from my experience building websites for small businesses, including my own. We'll cover how to make your homepage intriguing so that potential customers want to learn more about you. We'll talk about finding your style, colors, photos, images, how that all works, even if you're not a designer. Everyone has a design inside them, so we just need to bring it out. Make sure that your website represents your unique style. We'll also talk about the nuts and bolts of putting up a website, whether you do it yourself or you hire someone to do it. What are website platforms? How much do they cost? We'll cover all of that stuff as well. I'll end with a quick sales pitch for my web, tech, and design services in case you're looking for someone to help out your small business. And we'll have time for some Q&A and a community chat as well. Feel free to ask questions in the chat throughout the presentation. I'm here for you, so if you have a question or if you just want to engage with what I'm saying here, I'd love to hear it. Before we start, actually, let's just take a moment to stretch. You know, websites can be pretty stressful, so let's stretch it out. Take a couple of big deep breaths with me. Come on, give it a try. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. One more. Breathe out. Breathe in. All right, now that we're feeling grounded, settled, and hopefully confident in what we want to express, in our businesses, our work, our art, our writing, whatever brings you here today, we're ready to figure out how to put it online. I'd like to introduce myself. Let me go back to the slides. Hi, I'm Ray Katz. I build websites. I've actually been working on websites for over 10 years now. Amazing, right? I earned an undergrad degree in physics from MIT. I've never formally studied web design. A lot of it is self-taught. I've worked as an engineering manager, software developer, freelance journalist, content creator, and now I provide marketing, business strategy, websites, graphic design, and more, primarily for small businesses. You can check out my work at raykatz.com/portfolio. I've been working on websites long enough to know that websites can sometimes be really hard and stressful, especially when you're making your own website. And the reason for this is it's really hard to talk about yourself and your own work. We run into this problem whether we're writing a bio for an article or writing a grant application, a scholarship application. Anytime you're kind of forced to brag about who you are and what you do, it can feel really awkward and uncomfortable. And I think it's important to acknowledge that this is actually really hard. There's no easy, quick fix to make it straightforward to express your work in a really clear way. It just takes practice, as many of these things do. You just have to give it a try, iterate, and just keep improving the way you talk about your own work. I do this as well. There's a couple of other reasons why it can be really hard to put up a website or even edit your own website. There's a lot of different tech options out there. Anytime you think about, I want to add this to my website, there might be 25 ways to do that. They might have different pricing. This can be really confusing. Plus, you don't get paid for your time creating a website. A lot of us, if we're freelancers, doing hourly work or doing contract work, we're used to doing this hard kind of technical work and then getting a paycheck for it. When you promote your own work on your website, the problem is you don't actually get a paycheck for that. Me as a web developer, I sometimes do get a paycheck for working on websites. But when I work on my own website, I feel this too. I have to make the trade-off between working on my own website versus working on someone else's website to promote their business where I get paid for it. If you found it hard to create a website, if any of this is resonating with you, go ahead and let me know in the chat. I'd love to know what makes websites hard for you. Maybe because your website is hard to work on, you end up not creating a website. That could be okay, but some of these things could happen. What if someone asks you at a networking event, do you have a website? They want to learn more about your business, and you're like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't have a website yet. What if a prospect Googles you after a friend mentions your business, but they can't find you online? You might have lost a potential customer. This is really common, actually. Maybe your website is a Facebook page, but you're worried that Meta could ban your account. And this is a really serious concern, especially these days. And a lot of businesses rely on Facebook to list their phone number and other ways customers can contact them through Messenger or WhatsApp. Maybe you feel like less of a real business because you don't have an online presence. Now, this is more of a fear. I don't believe this, I think you have a real business, for sure, whether or not you have a website. But it can lead to a lack of confidence to not have a website out there. So, we are going to fix that. Setting up a simple website is probably not as hard as you think. It's going to be okay. If you're just joining the stream, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Please go ahead and give this a like and a subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. Thanks, just so you don't miss out on future great events like this. We are talking a little bit about why you might need a website for your small business and why websites can be stressful. Let me know in the chat where you're calling in from and whether you have a small business or other work that you do that you'd like to put online. Do you have a website? Are you hoping to have a website? Where are you at? Next, we're going to cover the most important part of the website, the homepage. This is the first thing that someone sees most of the time when they go to your website. So, what do you want someone to learn about you in the first 10 seconds they're looking at your website? I have some ideas here. It could be your business name. It could be what you do for your business. It could be a call to action. This is something like sign up for your newsletter or purchase one of your products. You could also share what could you do for a potential customer or an intriguing vibe. This is actually really important, this intrigue that gets the potential customer wanting to know more about you. This is what goes on your homepage. Think about this for a sec. Figure out, what would you like someone to know about you first when they look at your website? If you're feeling brave, go ahead and share that in the chat. All right, next thing we're going to talk about is some homepage pitfalls. There's a lot of websites out there, and some of them communicate better with their customers than others. So if we look at a few common issues with small business homepages, you'll understand how to avoid these with your own website. And if your website does have some of these issues, you're not alone. I've had many websites that have done the same thing. So it's nothing to be ashamed of. We're simply working on this together and trying to make things better. This is about growth and improvement. It's not at all about shame. The first homepage pitfall is don't info dump on your homepage specifically. Now, we all love a good info dump, right? We like to, we all have a friend or 2 or 10 who like to talk about things they're really enthusiastic about. And that's great. It's just not what you need ideally for your homepage. You don't want to overdo it and info dump on your prospective customer, because you want to leave them a little bit intrigued and wanting more. You want them to be interested to click on that learn more button or on that about page, or what are our services. If you give them too much on the homepage, they may feel overwhelmed because they just met you. It's a little bit time for small talk, not let me tell you everything about my business, my entire life story. That comes later. You can break it up. You can put it into different sections on different pages of your website. The next homepage pitfall, don't be too cool. Now, this is really common. A lot of people like to put up something really cool and unique and different on their website, and that can be nice. These are the websites that often stand out. But the question is it helping your prospective customer to know more about you? If you're too cool, the customer doesn't really know what your business does. That's the problem. For example, don't just put your name and nothing else on the homepage. Don't expect them to click to the about page and the other page and the other page and read your entire story and then have an idea of what you do. You want them to be able to know what you do on the homepage itself. Share enough of your story, not too much, not the info dump, but enough to draw someone in and be curious to learn more. People primarily go to your website as a small business to get information about how you can help them. Make sure that that's there and easily accessible. All right, next we're going to talk about finding your style. This can be an important and exciting creative process when you're first thinking about putting up a website. It can also be really stressful and intimidating. What should my website look like? You want it to look professional but not corporate, or you want it to be community oriented. You want it to match your unique sense of style. There's a lot of nuance to these. And if you're thinking about how to design your own website, you may start with a template, but you may be thinking, how do I customize this template to look more like me? And what does that even look like? Everyone has a style. I believe that you do have a style inside of you that maybe you're not used to expressing or you don't know how, and that's all fine. In the next few slides, I'm going to go through some ideas for how you can figure out what the style of your website could be. How, even if you're not a designer, you can figure out what design elements represent what you want to show on your website to your potential customers. Think about what your home office, your store looks like, or what you would like it to look like. Some of us have a very basic home office, but if money was no object, if you had a whole room to devote to your home office, your shop, what would it look like? Would it be really cool, futuristic, lots of computer monitors, neon lights? Another option would be maybe you have house plants dangling from the ceiling, you have moss gardens, you have fairy lights surrounding you, you have mushrooms painted on your desk, all kinds of stuff, right? Like if you had an ideal home office, what would feel comforting and nourishing to you? These you can think about your website as part of your office online. So you can put some of that aesthetic on your website as well. You can also think about what your product looks like. If your product already has an aesthetic, that can be great to mirror on your website. Here's some more about finding your style. Think about what kind of artwork or aesthetic are you drawn to. If you go to a museum or browse around in terms of online, if you look at art, is there certain types of artwork that you're drawn to? This can be a really good indication of what kind of images you'd like on your website. What kinds of textures and patterns do you like? And are there any symbols and inspiration that are important to you to put on your website to indicate that you're part of a community, that you support certain causes, or express something about your core beliefs? These can all go on your website. On this slide, I have a number of different design examples. Some of these, futuristic kind of wavy lines and stuff, that's like a high-tech kind of look, using realistic photos of people. That's another kind of look. Here's some watercolor trees, a little more artistic, some fabric patterns, some more kind of high-tech futuristic stuff. I like this one because it's got this high-tech circuitry look, but then it's also a tree. So it's combining tech and nature. And here's some cherry blossoms, which some people find very meaningful, as well as being beautiful. Maybe your audience is the kind of audience that would like a fun little animal mascot. You can feel free to bring in some of these elements, and they may seem a little out of the box and not quite corporate or not quite professional, but I would say that all of the things I've shown here on this slide are professional. They're just different kinds of professional. If you want a really professional, straightforward, cookie-cutter website, there are themes and templates out there for that. It's actually a little easier to achieve that kind of look. And some of these ideas that I'm sharing here are more like, what if you want a more unique website to express your business's personality? Maybe you're just stuck. You truly don't know what your website should look like. Think about what your customers might like. What style do your customers have? Think about a specific person who buys from you if you're still unsure. If you don't have any customers, imagine a person or come up with a prospective client. You can also look at your competitors online. That may give you some idea. You don't want to sort of copy paste anyone's design work, but a lot of design is derivative and gets inspiration from what other businesses and designers are already doing. This is very standard to look at other people's websites for inspiration, and it's completely fine. Let's talk a little bit about colors. We're going to talk just a little bit more about design, and then after that, we're going to get into some of the more technical aspects of putting together your website. We'll talk about search. We'll talk about website platforms. If anyone has any questions while we're going through this, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Happy to answer your questions. So colors can be a fun part of the design process. People tend to have a favorite color. Colors are really important, and they convey tone or emotion on your website. So it is an important selection. I recommend that if you love a color, start with that color, and then find other colors that coordinate and contrast with that one color. You need a range of colors to create visual contrast. They should range from very light to very dark. Why? Because you're likely going to have text on a background in multiple places on your site. You may want more than one type of text on a background. For example, in this presentation, I have some white text on green background. I have some white text on black background. I have some other slides that are this purple color. And some of the colors that I've selected have enough contrast so that you can read the text on the background. That's why you want the range. For these colors, these are my brand colors, at least right now. I selected this kind of purple color first and then chose the others to go with it. I didn't want just one color. I wanted two colors at least, so I selected this purple and green to kind of go together, and then I included a few neutrals that coordinate well with it. That's not the only way you can choose colors. A lot of creative small businesses want all the colors, okay? And that's great. Adding a lot of different color schemes, adding a lot of different colors to your color scheme can be fun, inviting, playful, full of childlike wonder. This can be great, especially for educators, shops that have a lot of personality, and anyone who wants to express uniqueness. This is kind of the opposite of bland corporate. If you have multiple colors of the rainbow going on your site, you want to make sure that it's not way too much, it doesn't clash. And you can achieve this a few ways. If you use small design elements of bright colors, that looks much less overwhelming. If you use a really bright orange, for example, that may not work the best for the background of your page, because, what color text are you going to put on top of that? You can't read it. Okay, so you want to make sure that the areas of your website that have text are nice and readable. You may want to go back to your neutrals, something very light or very dark for this. But then the other elements of your site, the photos, maybe even the headings, the little underline under the headings, colored designs surrounding the text, that can all be bright colors if you would like. You can put a bright colored background and then put something that's like a light or dark on top of that, and then your text so that it has a contrast. There's a lot of ways to play around with this to get a bright color in there without being overwhelming right next to your text. If you're wondering how to find colors that go well together, you can find inspiration out in nature. I have a bunch of different images of animals and plants that have lots of different colors going on. We have the calico cat with the orange, the black, the white, and the light green eyes. Isn't that beautiful? There's some parrots over here with the red, orange, yellow, green, and then this neutral of the feet. There's some orchids, I think. They have pink, purple, white. There's some yellow in the background. We can see that these photos look really pleasing, and they're really nice. So if you made a website, for example, that had similar amounts of these colors overall, that might look really nice. You probably wouldn't want this, red from the parrot's face to be the entire website, right? That would be so overwhelming. But if you made a website that had a bunch of green and then had a little accents of red and yellow and orange, that could look really nice. Got some others, this blue and this orangey yellow. That looks great together. That would make a great website color scheme. This is the rosy maple moth over here. Really like those guys. They are yellow and pink. That's a beautiful color combination. This coral reef, we've got orange, blues, this sort of pinky purple. There's a lot of great colors in here. That I could see this being a really nice, brilliant, attractive website. And then here's some more flowers with lots of different colors combined together. Just check the chat real quick. Are there colors that you really like? Do you want all the colors? Do you want just one color and build a color scheme around it? How do you think about colors? After you've selected your style, your colors, you might start thinking about what kind of images am I going to put on my website? Great question. Some people have their own great photos or other images, especially artists, or if you have photos of yourself. They don't have to be professional photos. As long as, you're good with what they represent and they look pretty good, you can go ahead and use the photos you've taken on your phone. You can take some photos. It can be pretty casual, and remember, you can always replace the photos later if you need to. If you don't have the photos or other images that you need, there's a lot of great stock photos out there. And specifically, there's a lot of stock photos that are free for commercial use. This is really important if you're doing a small business website because you need to have permission to use that photo. You cannot just take a photo off the internet and copy paste it onto your website. You should go to one of these stock photo sites because the person who took the photos is actually granting you permission to use it in this commercial way to advertise your business. So these are some great stock photo sites. You can just type these into Google and they'll come up. Pexels and Unsplash, they both have a wide selection of free for commercial use photos. Nappy.co is really cool because it features photos of black and brown skinned people, and those kind of photos are not centered on other stock photo sites, unfortunately. You should actually, if you're searching for photos of people, you should be aware that the models in these stock photos are overwhelmingly white, skinny, able-bodied, straight, and cis people. You can add some search keywords to try and get a more diverse set of photos. Some search keywords include plus size model, diverse, wheelchair, LGBT. And this can feel a little bit awkward or objectifying to put these in. I completely agree with you. That's the advantage of, nappy.co here. You don't have to add the search keyword to get photos of, people who are not represented well in media. And the reason these search keywords work on these other sites like Pexels and Unsplash is because the people who are posting the photos tag them with these kind of keywords. So this is just making the search engine work for you based on the way these photos are tagged. Another option is Canva Pro. If you happen to use Canva like I do, I made this presentation in Canva, I do a lot of work in Canva. They have a good selection of stock photos as well that you can use as long as you modify the images. For example, I've modified these images by adding them to the presentation. You can look at Canva's terms if you're uncertain about what this means. Speaking of search, having an online presence, it's really important for potential customers to be able to discover you online. Now, search engine optimization, or SEO, is its own field. You can go really deep into it, but the core of it is very simple, actually. Think about, how would you search Google for your own business? This is an important exercise, actually. Go type it in to Google. Literally type in on your keyboard and search for a small business like yours. You can share in the chat what your particular search would be, in addition to typing it into Google. And then go ahead and write down what you typed into the search bar. Phrases like this should go on your website, because when other people type similar things into Google search, Google or other search engines will bring up results that have those phrases in them. Now there's a whole, AI search results going on, etc., etc. Search is definitely changing, but the one thing that has not changed is telling Google clearly what your website is about by putting those search phrases on your website as something to find. Here's some more examples of search phrases that I thought of. Affordable website for small business. That's kind of what I do. Maybe people are searching for that. LGBTQ friendly martial arts near me. I would search that. Help with marketing, New York City, Ray Katz, web design. You should think about, if your name is associated with your product or service, people may be searching your name, and so that should be clearly visible on your website. If you're just starting out creating websites and you've never created a website before, you may not know what's easy or what's hard to do in terms of websites. So even if you're working with a web developer, you may find yourself wondering, is this an easy thing to ask them to do? Is this going to take them hours? Is this going to be 2 minutes? I have no idea. So here I'm sharing a couple of examples of what I sometimes run into with my clients. It is easier to have similar vibes to a site that you love, and it's a lot harder to make a website look pixel perfect and match a design. This is actually one of the things that takes up a ton of time. If you insist on your website being pixel perfect and looking exactly a certain way, that can be really hard to achieve, because these website platforms limit what exactly you can adjust. You can make it look similar very easily, and then to tweak it those last little bits, that is often where a lot of time gets spent. It is easier to add text, photos, and links to your website. Any website platform, any reasonable website platform should easily allow you to add text, photos, and links to your website. Making anything interactive is often harder. Some things are not that hard. Adding a contact form to your website should not be that hard. But if you need, an animation that you click on it and it does something else, and then you scroll down and the page changes, those are often the really hard things to build because they're custom. There is no drop-in website plugin to let you do those things. And the reason they look impressive on certain company websites is because they've paid someone to spend a lot of time working on it. But for a small business, especially if you're trying to stay within a small budget, you want to stay away from interactivity on your website unless you really, really need it. It's also easier to share useful resources on your website. It's harder to ensure viral results. Now, this is really important. A lot of people want to go viral, but it's really hard to go viral. It requires a lot of trial and error and a certain willingness to perhaps make shocking or controversial content. So if you're a small business, you may find it more helpful actually to go in the direction of useful resources rather than going viral. Even if you do go viral, think about it. You're going to get a lot of comments, some of them unpleasant, and that may not actually bring in a lot of customers. Sharing useful resources so that your customers know that you know what you're talking about can bring in more people. All right, we've gone through a whole lot of website design ideas. We're going to jump into website platforms and cost for a few minutes next. Let me know what you're thinking of in terms of your website design. Do you have a website already? Would you like to have a website that is more improved? What would you like to put on your website? Any search keywords? Let me know in the chat. All right, this has been a lot, so I'm gonna stretch for just a second, and I hope you'll join me as well. Let's take a little break. Working on your website is really kind of challenging. It can be fairly stressful to figure out what you want, how you want to express yourself. It's a whole lot. So make sure you give yourself a little bit of time and space. Don't try to do it all in one time. This is something that can be a creative process. If you can find a little joy in this, if you can find a little excitement in the creative process, that is going to really help you, also make a good impression to your customers. They want to see a little bit of your joy often. Let's go back to the slides. Next, we're going to cover website platforms and cost. This can be a really commonly asked question in my experience. A lot of people ask me, I want to make a website for free. How can I do that? How can I do it myself? What platform should I use? There's a bunch of them. There's Wix, there's Card, there's WordPress.com, etc., etc. So I'm going to talk about the three most common website platforms that I get presented with as a freelancer, and these are the ones that I recommend if you don't otherwise have a website yet. One of them is going to be free, Google Sites. The other two are paid. Google Sites is my preferred free website option. It is free. You do not pay for it. They do not have a premium plan even. However, it's fairly limited in terms of the layout and the options. You can kind of just put photos, text, buttons. You can kind of put forms in, sort of. It's very, very limited. But this can be enough for someone who just wants a website with text and images and what they do and a link to a contact form. And that's actually what I'm doing for my website right now. I know, a little embarrassing, a web developer, and I'm, not on WordPress. I'm on Google Sites right now. Well, I've had many, many, many WordPress sites in my life, and, I wanted to try Google Sites. I actually think it's a pretty decent free platform. You can have multiple pages, unlike Card. That's another popular one. There's nothing wrong with Card. It's just limited in different ways. You can add, I have calendar scheduling on my site through TidyCal. I have a couple of different types of sign-up forms. A main limitation of Google Sites is you cannot really do blog posts. It's not good for blogging. If you want blog posts, choose WordPress or Squarespace instead, or a newsletter platform like Substack. In Google Sites, you can connect your custom domain name, and what that is like yourname.com, for example, and you can use Google Analytics with it. This is all free. However, you do need to pay like $20 a year for a domain name. It might be less than that, but this is for a domain name wherever you have it. Our next website platform is Squarespace. Squarespace is a really well-known, popular website platform. They advertised in the Super Bowl, but they've been popular before that. They have really straightforward drag and drop editor and templates to get started. Squarespace is built on a grid system. So when you drag these text and these images to particular spots on the page, it kind of snaps into place on a grid. You cannot change things and make them pixel perfect. It has a little bit of a particular look, but honestly, if you're not a web developer, you're probably not going to notice the look. I think it works really well to put up a professional and inviting appearance. And these are two examples of websites that I have worked on in Squarespace. And I think they're very attractive looking and good at converting customers as well, which is important. Squarespace is around $16 a month as of right now. Our other WordPress, WordPress is perhaps the most well-known website platform. There's some huge percentage of the web that's running on WordPress and has been for 10, 15 years, something like that. It's a long-time platform. It has many themes and plugins available and a lot of stuff built up around WordPress. It needs a lot of initial configuration to look okay, unlike Squarespace, which is more out of the box. You probably will need to install a theme or heavily customize the starter theme that WordPress has. It will take some work to set it up and look like a nice website. But if you're willing to put in that work, it may not be that much for a professional web developer to get you set up with a theme WordPress site. After that, it's great for blogging. It's great for search. And if you need any sort of interesting technical features like searching through projects or something like that, That's a lot easier to implement on WordPress than it is on Squarespace. WordPress is very customizable, and you can incorporate other technical features into it more easily. WordPress WordPress can be hosted on many different hosting services. One example is Cloudways hosting. It might look a little technical to sign up, but this is the least expensive one that I've found. Starts at $11 a month. And the other one that I like is WP Engine. It's more expensive, but it has more backup and recovery features to make web development really straightforward, so you don't end up taking your website down accidentally. All right, any questions about these web platforms, Google Sites, Squarespace, or WordPress, or any other platform? I know a lot of folks are on other platforms. You might be using the website that comes with your online course. You might be doing a newsletter. There's a lot of reasons to use other website platforms other than these. This is just my recommended if you don't have some other reason for using something else. Finally, the $1 million question: how much does a website cost? And these estimates are for a very straightforward website with a homepage, an About Us page, a services page, contact form, with no e-commerce, no integrations, nothing challenging technically. If you do this yourself and you've never made a website before, I would expect to put in at least 20 hours to learn how to do it and configure the site. Possibly much more, depending on how much you need to learn and what you're looking to do. There's a reason that this is a profession. It does take some time to learn and figure out, and it requires a lot of searching online. There are a lot of resources online, and I don't at all mean to scare you away from doing this. I mostly self-taught myself, so I think it's really cool if you want to learn how to do your own website. In fact, a lot of the work that I do with my clients, I work together with them to make sure that they know how to use their website after I've put it together. That's really important to me. If I'm estimating this kind of a website with a new client, I estimate between 10 and 20 hours of my time, kind of conservatively. Sometimes it takes less than that, to design, build, set up, and launch. So, for example, at $60 US per hour, that is approximately $600 to $1.2 thousand. So, I share this so you get a general idea of how much this would cost. That's actually somewhat on the low side for independent service providers. Many service providers, it's not uncommon to charge $100 to $200 an hour, or a flat fee on the website of $1,000 to $5,000 for a website like this. I would not be surprised at that. Then if you scale up to a corporate level and you're working with an agency that has account execs, they have designers, they have web developers, they have a team of people working on your site, and they might charge you $10,000, maybe more. This is not unexpected, and it's seen as worth it for businesses because a website is so crucial to finding customers and bringing in revenue. Any questions about pricing? I know that I want to be really transparent here. I guess the one other option I should let you know about is there are a lot of service providers on Fiverr, for example, that may put up a website for you for more like $100 to $200, and you are welcome to try that out. I can't personally vouch for the quality of that. I suspect that they are using templates, so your website will look a lot like other websites. For that amount of money, they likely won't work with you on the content, the copy, the tone, the design. They'll just put something together for you. But if that's what fits within your budget, go ahead and do that. Like, if you need a website, you can always update and change it later. If you are working with a service provider, I would look for someone who, for example, does Squarespace websites or does WordPress websites, not some weird thing you've never heard of, because you want this to be maintainable in the long run. You may want to go in there and change what they've done after they've provided it to you. All right, let's talk about if you want to create a website or update your website after this class, what could your next steps be? We'll go through the next steps. We just have a few minutes left. I'll talk a little bit about my services, and then we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A if there are any questions. If you're joining us halfway through, welcome. Glad to have you here. Go ahead and hit like and subscribe if you haven't already, so you can be notified about great content coming up later. So, your next steps for creating a website. This is very exciting. You have a lot of information. You're going to go and process that for a little bit and figure out what you want on your small business website. This is an exciting time. The creative process, getting it out there, and finally getting the online presence that you would like. So, let's talk through the plan. I recommend that first you write a one-sentence description of your business for your homepage. Gather existing content or materials which you can copy onto your website. This could be existing stuff like flyers or PDFs, images, emails, anything that you might have for your business already. Social media posts, documentation, stuff that you want to share with your customers. You may already have a lot of content that can go on your website. In terms of design, create a mood board or find a collection of design examples that you like. You may look at other websites, figure out what kind of websites appeal to you, and save those. Save screenshots or links, and so you have a collection of them. So as a web designer, when a client sends me an example website that they like, I usually ask them the follow-up question, what do you like about this site? Because the answer usually surprises me. Maybe they like that particular color in the upper left corner, or maybe they like that the content is in 2 columns down the page. Maybe they like the way the menu at the top looks, or they like the video that plays when you go to the page. There are so many different aspects of a web page, so if you save a design example, I recommend also putting a little note next to it, or even just drawing on it, a little arrow. That's the part that I like. That's going to help you figure out what you want to put on your own website. Be willing to abandon your nice design examples in favor of what is easier on your selected website platform. Making it pixel perfect is hard. Getting the vibes right is a little easier. Go for vibes. If it's not exactly the way you want it, it's okay. It's a work in progress. Websites can be surprisingly messy, and that is okay. Finally, this is going to take a little bit of time. Go ahead and block out some time to put your content and your images onto your new website and set everything up. All right, so this sounds like a lot, right? I'm exhausted and I'm not even the one putting up the website. Okay, so you may be thinking, I need help doing this. That is very, very understandable. Even if you're enthusiastic about putting together a website yourself, even if you've put together websites in the past, you may feel yourself wanting help for your business website. A lot of my clients are really good at doing technical things themselves, and that's great. I honestly love this. I can offer a collaboration with technical folks. I listen to what you need, and then I can implement it efficiently and cleanly, so you don't have to stress about doing that part of the job. Or if you're less technically inclined, I can build a site for you so you never have to touch the technical side of it. If you're interested in learning how to add your own content to the site, etc., I am happy to walk you through it in detail, slowly, and I believe anyone can learn how to enter content and do modify their own website. That's important, and we work on that. I've received some lovely feedback from some of my clients. Natalie says, "Amazing. I truly love working with Ray. They are such a wonderful, responsive partner for web development." Thank you, Natalie. Linda says, "Even before promoting the site, we already have 2 consultations scheduled via the website and 1 package purchased. Amazing design skills." Thank you, Linda. And Stephanie says, "Thanks for being reliable and great, Ray. I wasn't stressed about my website at all." That's nice, Stephanie. I'm glad you weren't stressed. That is the goal. If you'd like to talk about how I can help with your website, please send me a note at hello@raycats.com, or you can book a call with me directly. I offer a no-cost 30-minute consultation where we can dig in and start solving your problems. No pressure to continue unless both of us want to move forward. You can book that at raycats.com/discovery-call. And if you want to work with me this year, I'm letting you know, now is the time to book a call with me. I am scheduling throughout the next several months. And together we can get your website up and running with less stress. You've made it to the end of the presentation. Good job. We've covered a lot of website ideas, from design to website platforms, search and discoverability, what's easy, what's hard, and we've talked a little bit about my services. I offer strategy, marketing, tech support, graphic design, and of course, web development to my clients. I specialize in working with small businesses. I understand because I too run a small business, so I am excited to help and support you if I can. Please like and subscribe to this channel. We have a lot of great marketing and website and other resources coming up, even how to do videos, lots of stuff coming up. So please go ahead and like, subscribe. Thank you so much for joining me on this presentation today. I hope you learned something about websites. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, and reach out to me anytime at hello@raycats.com. Looking forward to hearing from you. Any last questions in the chat that you'd like me to address? I am not seeing any questions right now. I really appreciate you sticking it out till the end. Hope you've learned something here. Thanks so much. I'll be logging off, but if you need anything else from me, check out my website, raycats.com. Check out my other videos, and looking forward to hearing from you soon. Okay, take care. Bye.